All right, guys, just a fresh take here. After watching this, I just wanted to share some of my raw thoughts of episode 2 from season 2 of House of the Dragon here. And after leaving off with the events of Blood and Cheese, I mean, you are kind of confused about where do they go now. You know that there's going to be some sort of impact, but this whole episode really is kind of the response that a lot of us were hoping to get in an instant at the end of the Blood and Cheese event, right? A lot of us were looking for a scream or some sort of pop or something that made it feel more impactful. And I think we got a lot of that dedicated to this episode. And it's not just experienced within that one scene, but it's experienced with multiple characters. And in that regard, I like it. I still, like many of you, even though I kind of defended the difference in the direction that they went in House of the Dragon first episode of the season 2 with Blood and Cheese, I still understand where book fans are coming from. And hopefully that was communicated. But no more talking about the Blood and Cheese depiction. Let's talk about what actually happened here with these characters. And the first thing that jumped out at me is the guilt. There is so much guilt, and it's handled maybe a little bit differently. With Alicent, it's almost as if she accepts this as something she needs to be accountable for, almost as if this is her fault. Obviously, it's not truly her fault. This is Daemon's fault. And I'm going to get to Daemon because I think a lot of people, especially people that think that they are writing Daemon, and again, this is another episode written by Sarah Hess, who, infamously said, she can't really understand why people like Daemon. But I'll get back to Daemon here in a little bit because I think this episode is going to play into that conspiracy against Daemon from the writers of and the showrunners here of House of the Dragon. And it's going to be difficult to defend them on that one because they have made Daemon pretty, I would say he's not very morally gray at this point. That doesn't mean it can't change. So I think we need to see where this is going. But Alicent's guilt, I think, is something I want to get back to. Alicent and Criston Cole. Criston Cole is another character that is experiencing that guilt in a different way, where he takes that guilt and it's almost like when a partner accuses the other partner of cheating to kind of hide the fact that they're the ones being unfaithful, right? So it's kind of like that, where Criston Cole is doing a lot of projection there on Sir Arik and ultimately manipulates Sir Arik into leaving and infiltrating Dragonstone, leading us to the conclusion, well, almost the conclusion of our episode. There is one more scene that also involves Criston Cole, but I really did, I think Daemon and Criston Cole, I think we're going to start making some comparisons between these two characters because as fans of the book or fans of the show, you're going to have different perceptions of what you think these characters should be. But the characterization of Daemon as well as Criston Cole, I feel like we're not getting a ton of nuance there. We are just seeing like the worst that these characters have to offer. We see kind of not much of as far as like redeeming qualities. But there's some things I really did like about this episode. We got to see Adam of Hall. I thought that was pretty exciting. We got Alan last episode. We got Adam this episode. And again, I can't really go into why I'm so excited to see these guys because it would turn into spoilers. But again, pay attention to these guys because they are going to become very significant as we move forward in this story. I think the big standout, though, again, everybody was saying it going into this season, and people that have already had screeners, Aegon is, again, the rock star of this episode. He's the one that really takes on the burden of the emotion for so much of the last episode's conclusion. You see him really express things that are so interesting and such a contrast to the character that we got last season, where he is kind of focused on being the best king. He has no clue what he's doing. He doesn't know what the best course of action is, and a lot of his decisions are emotional. But one thing that he did have as far as being more of a rational leader is wanting to make certain that the generation that comes after him is going to be prepared. And that seemed to be very important to him in the last episode. So to have that heir ripped away from him and, ruthlessly be murdered, his reaction to that, I think there is a part of it that is, yes, he lost the heir. Yes, he feels embarrassed. Yes, he feels vulnerable. He feels that, the way the people are looking at him, he just doesn't have a really tight way of looking at things. He's irrational. He's erratic with throwing things around, breaking things, breaking Viserys's mold of Valeria. A new ruler is here, and it's not like the last one. And the ruler that he could be under, say, Otto's guidance or Alicent's guidance now seems to be impossible. This is a dog off the chain, and it's going to be fascinating to watch as we move forward here over the next couple episodes. But his confrontation with Otto Hightower, that was a high moment. His confrontation with his own small council, and the fact that he kind of got whispered into his ear from Larys last episode that Otto is his father's hand, not Aegon's hand. So he repeats that, and it seems that he's more emboldened to do so, where he seemed reluctant to go against Otto's advice or guidance one episode ago. Now, with the pain, comes kind of a hardening of Aegon as a leader, where he can just simply dismiss Otto, and there seems to be no fear or reluctance to doing so. Now, we later see Aegon crying when Alicent walks in on him, and maybe that's just the total breakdown of losing a son, and you can only imagine how horrible that would feel. And maybe that's true, but I think a lot of it too is this is overwhelming him. He is not prepared to be a leader. I think it's easy to say now, by the depiction here in House of the Dragon, if you could have Aegon ruling the kingdom or you could have Rhaenyra, it's hands down, it's easier to go ahead and select Rhaenyra at this point. Even with the death of her son, much more calm, cool, and collected. Now, there's another moment here too that I thought was interesting, a callback to last season there with Aemond, where he's there with the, I believe she's a brothel keeper, where he does have this moment, this vulnerable moment where he lets out that he regrets the situation with Lucerys. And I do think that's kind of fascinating to hear. And she also points out the fact that when, princelings have their altercations or outbursts or whatever their moments are, it's the small folk that pay, whether it's the king, whether there's a queen, a prince, princess, it doesn't matter. These high lords always seem to have their problems become the small folk problems. And I like that they're building that up. The same thing with the rat catchers all of them being hung, and how that really demolishes the good faith that they had developed by having a public ceremony there for Jaehaerys, getting the people to mourn for the royal family, to mourn for Helaena, and mourn for Alicent, and mourn for Jaehaerys. That was a good faith move by doing that. It earned them good faith. It earned them mourning. It earned them more compassion, if I can put my words together correctly. However, when Aegon kills all the rat catchers, only one of them are guilty. So you definitely killed a lot of innocent people, and the small folk are not feeling that. And I like that they keep sprinkling that in. As well, another thing I really enjoyed, speaking of small folk, is I like Mysaria. I like her so much more than I did last season. And it's like there was something very clunky about her accent, and it just seemed that they got her into a much more smooth, calm place. They reworked that a little bit, and it gives the character, I think, and the actress a little bit more agency of the character. We're able to really connect with her a little bit more and hear what she's saying without being distracted by kind of an absurd accent there. So I like that. I liked her interactions there with Rhaenyra. It does connect us with the small folk again, because again, we're worried about what is she thinking. I like Rhaenyra calls her out on her nonsense with her being in service to the Hightowers and being in service to Otto. And I like that there's this self-reflective moment where Mysaria lets it known that, she tried to serve Daemon, she tried to serve Otto, but it really led to the exact same place. nobody cares about the small folk, and it seems like a small moment there, but it's something to pay attention to. And when Cargyll walks in to Dragonstone and Mysaria turns around and catches him, I'm curious to see how they play that out in episode 3. If Mysaria definitely is the one responsible for alerting everybody that, hey, Sir Eric has been replaced, or there's an imposter of Sir Eric. Interesting thing to pay attention to. So I'm looking forward to that. All in all, I thought it was a really good episode. I don't want to jump into this too much, but the Cargyll twins fight, I thought that was depicted beautifully. I like that they had their fight there within Rhaenyra's Rhaenyra's quarters. I think that really kind of enhanced the moment, because then once you realize, like, oh no, this is like it's almost like a cartoon, but these are real people. These are real characters. These are real twins that are fighting to the death. We actually have, now I've lost track. I don't know which one's which. And you can kind of feel that with Rhaenyra. You can feel it at the end when I believe Sir Arik dies first, and then Sir Eric, who was loyal to Rhaenyra, ultimately does decide to fall upon his own sword, ending his life. He just killed his brother. In that moment, he can't handle it. It's a little bit of a retelling, because it says they both fought to the death, assuming that one struck a fatal blow on the other while the other struck a fatal blow on them. This is a little bit of a revision of that, but I don't think anybody's going to complain about that change. I think it was depicted really well. But I wanted to talk about Daemon. I think Daemon is similar to Criston Cole, but it's different. I don't think anybody looks at Criston Cole the way that they look at Daemon, where there might be some people that are fans of Criston Cole for whatever reason, and I'm not here to tell you what to think, but neither one of them are presented in a great light. They're not given a lot of redeeming character traits. You used to think that Daemon really did love his brother and he wanted to be of service of his brother, but when he gets confronted by Rhaenyra, that's not exactly how he presents himself. Now, that is not to say that it's not true. I keep looking at Daemon and I'm wondering, is House of the Dragon taking a page out of A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones with Jaime Lannister? If so, I think we need to hold tight and see what happens here. I think they're going to make some more changes, and I don't know if all book fans are going to be happy about it. The changes that they made so far, there's a good segment of the book population that has kind of pushed back against those things. So we'll see what happens. But with Daemon, I think I'm trying to be patient, because I want to see this character really fleshed out into more than just this kind of loose cannon that's going to do whatever he wants when he wants, which is kind of the idea of the Rogue Prince. But I want to see something a little bit more human. I want to see a side of him that makes me care about him and not just understand where he's coming from, but maybe even agree with where he's coming from emotionally. To feel sorry for him, to feel compassion for this guy. We're not getting a lot of that, and I really hope that we do, because it's the same thing with the Greens, where we really start in that moment with Aegon and Otto. I don't like Otto as like a human being, right? It's difficult to like him. He's not a very likable guy. He's not intended to be. But in that moment, him going back and forth with his grandson, I almost start to feel for Otto, like, oh man, you're about to be dismissed, and you're realizing right now that the decision to place Aegon on the throne has kind of backfired. And if you guys would have been steadfast with Rhaenyra, continue to prepare her for the throne, the realm would not be in the situation that it's in right now. And the only reason why there's war is because of your decisions. You conspired with that small council behind Alicent's back, at least as presented in House of the Dragon, and now you are paying the consequences. I think that's kind of an interesting way to tie that up. And to also go ahead and tie up this video with Alicent and Criston Cole. I kind of like what's going on here. Just for one, it's giving Alicent something to do, where otherwise in the book, she doesn't have anything to do here for a little while. So seeing her and Criston Cole having this romance, I'm curious how that's going to play out with Criston Cole. Is there something we can get out of this guy? Like with Daemon, I want something redeeming. I want to like him. Not because I think what his role is in this show is exciting or cool or something that we should relate to or feel compassion for, but just because I want him to be a little bit more layered than what I'm seeing right now. All he is right now is a hypocrite who continues to dishonor himself and then basically project that onto whoever he encounters next. All in all, I don't think this is necessarily a great episode. There's a couple things that stuck out to me that I'm missing. I wanted to see a little bit more out of Helaena. I hope that we get a little bit more out of that. I liked the changes they've made to this character. I like the reason why I defended or would defend the depiction of blood and cheese is because I think it plays better into the different direction that they're trying to take Helaena. However, they didn't build off of that much. She has a moment there during the ceremony of, when they present Jaehaerys to the Smallfolk in King's Landing. They do have a moment there for her there, but it doesn't really communicate much other than this is an overwhelming situation, which that's pretty surface level stuff. That's pretty general. We all kind of understand what's going on, but I would like a deeper dive of her character. I want to hear her talk more. I want to know what she feels. Knowing that she's confused about some of the things that she's thinking or these visions is one thing. I want a little bit more. I want to know what's going on with her feelings. I want to know what her emotions are. But those are my general thoughts. I mean, this is fresh. This isn't scripted. This isn't me taking time to write down a ton of notes. So that's what this video is. Stick around. I'm going to have something else out here for you guys, a little bit more professional by Tuesday or Wednesday. Thanks for checking it out.